It's 8 o'clock our time here already in Nigeria. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, media girls, and perhaps I should say boys. But well, of course, it gives me great pleasure to officially welcome you warmly to this month's edition of the Media Girls Nigeria webinar. And this, of course, is our very first for the year. And of course, I am really much excited about how the conversation today would pan out. The conversation tonight, or perhaps I should say, our theme tonight, telling stories that matter. How media girls can drive social change is such a powerful reminder, that storytelling is more than just entertainment. It's about influence, it's leadership, it's impact. From bold reporting, we see the likes of Christina Amanpour to the transformative media vision of the Oprah Winfrey. We've got the likes of Maope Ogunyusu here, even in Nigeria. We also had the likes of Tolulope Adele Balogun, who was, our last speaker, and of course our own Oludolapo Adewale. So from the bold reporting of all of these wonderful and amazing women in the media, it has shown us greatly that stories can challenge systems, it can amplify unheard voices and inspire real change. So today we will be celebrating the next generation of media girls. That would be me and you. And we're looking at the creators, the journalists, everybody, digital storytellers, everyone who is basically involved, who are not just telling stories, but they are doing what? They are shaping the future. Good evening once again, everyone. My name is Aramide Folorunsho, and I am your moderator for today's webinar. So I would like to see, today is going to be very, very much interactive. I want you to drop some emojis. I mean, you could clap or drop one or two things in the chats. I just want to see you. I want to see the media girls in the house. Oh, good. I see Priska. Who else is in the meeting? Just drop love emojis or something. Okay. Thank you so much. Praise. I see praise. Adelola. So you are actually, you're welcome. Oh, I see praise again. Thank you so much. You can keep it coming. Thank you so much. Today is going to be very much interactive because the conversation today is quite interesting to me. Telling stories that matter. It's important to first understand what exactly does it mean to tell stories that matter. What exactly does it take to tell stories that matter? And that's why we have our guest today, who is very much big in the media industry, has an experience of over 2 decades, and he's more than just the right person to discuss this with us tonight. But before we bring up our guest, I want us to have a quick chat from our last conversation. Could you just quickly tell me one or two things that you picked up from the last conversation that we had? You may choose to use the microphone option if you want to speak directly, or if you want to use the chat box to drop your comments. I just want to get an idea of, okay, the last webinar that we had, what exactly did you pick from it? Do you want me to call names? Priska, Praise. I'd like you both to say one or two things. Can you all hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Oh. Yes, we can.
Oh, Priska, thank you for answering me. Kindly just tell me briefly what you learned from, the last conversation that we had in this Media Girls Nigeria webinar.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Priska, and last month webinar, we discussed about how we should try to explore first before we specialize. So we thought how to be able to find out all the things that interest us. For example, we spoke about if you can script, if you can do voiceovers, if you can read the news, you can do different areas that has to do with media generally. So if we can be able to get do those things first before we develop, let me say, something like a niche for ourselves to be able to specialize and say, okay, this is what can earn more money for me. This is something that I don't need to go meet people for them to patronize me, but people can actually come meet me and they will pay for value for what I have. So generally, we just thought that we should learn to explore, try things, different things before we decide that, okay, this is the path that we want to go. And it doesn't also limit us that we can also change that part in the future, or we can also do multiple things at the same time with what we actually choose to specialize in. So that's what I learned. Thank you.
Priska, I really appreciate your contribution. And guess what? My February salary goes to you for giving this response. Anyway, so let's move on because I'm aware that our guest is here. Again, I just earlier spoke about, the topic for tonight. We are looking at something which is very important to us at this time, telling stories that matter, how media girls can drive social change, talking about the fact that it is a powerful reminder that storytelling is more than entertainment. It's about making influence, it's about leadership, it's about impact. But how do we go about this? Let's learn from the one who has done this over the years, and not just years, but decades. It's with great pleasure that I introduce to you Nifemi Oguntoye. He's a broadcast journalist and corporate compere with over 2 decades of experience across Nigeria's leading newsrooms and high-profile corporate events, recognized with awards for excellence in the field. As lead anchor at TVC News, he delivers the station's flagship bulletins and anchor Beyond the Headlines, which is a daily program recognized as national reference point for probing yet respectful conversations with leaders, policymakers, and changemakers. His coverage of Nigeria's 2023 elections and the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly drew global attention with exclusive interviews and incisive reporting that trended widely and reached millions. Beyond the newsroom, he is the preferred host for international brands such as MTN, KPMG, and GGGI, bringing a versatile style that connects audiences at policy dialogues, industry summits, and milestone celebrations. In recognition of his impact, he was named Broadcast Media Personality of the Year 2023 and selected as a fellow of the MTN Media Innovation Program 2024 at Pan Atlantic University and the University of Johannesburg. His work, whether behind the news desk or on the corporate stage, is defined by credibility, excellence, and a commitment to raising the bar for journalism and event hosting in Nigeria. Media girls, please, with a warm round of applause, do welcome with me, Nifemi Oguntoye. Let me see your reactions. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Good evening, Nifemi Oguntoye. It's good to have you join the conversation tonight.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't think it is fair to have read such a long profile for such a short engagement because I just told the lap that I have about 30 minutes because this is crashing with a family meeting. Because we work Mondays to Friday, we only have weekends for family, but I'm so glad to be here and I'm honored as well. Thank you for having me.
We're also excited to have you. I've always watched you on TV, and I'm excited to see you here again, even though I'm seeing you, via my phone. But let's get the conversation started. Tell us how media girls can drive social change. I want to first, laying a background to this, tell us a bit about your, experience, how you got into the media. Just Tell us a bit about yourself.
All right. So nobody can tell your story better, right? I I started writing poems, and at some point I fell in love a lot with some guy called Segun Akinlolu, also known as Beautiful Nubia. Now, Beautiful Nubia is the artist, but Segun Akinlolu is the poet. So he would write poems and perform with African percussion. And I started doing that when I was in uni. I would write African tales, perform them with African percussion, with folklores and folk songs and what have you. And that was how I really started. And I thought I was going to write poems for a living until I found out that I had some form of a unique way of talking as well. So a radio campus came into town, and a friend of mine wanted to apply, wanted to be on air, and I wrote a proposal for him. Interestingly, I followed him there, and immediately the studio manager, the station manager saw the proposal. I said, "Well, this is a good one. You should start next week." And then I said, "Sir, I have a proposal too." He said, "Oh, I like the way you said proposal." And then the next week I was on radio as well. So that's how it started. I started on campus, started on radio, and then I just fell in love with broadcasting. And I told everyone who cared to listen that I was going to be a broadcaster. So when I went for NYSC, on NYSC camps, there's what they call OBS, Orientation Broadcasting Service. And that's where everything blossomed. I was there like 20 times. I was so desperate to be at OBS. And that's how my career actually took off.
Well, quite interesting. I think OBS perhaps laid a bit of some foundation for me too, because when I was in NYSC camp, I decided, to join OBS, and the rest they say is history. So I'm very much I love your story. It's quite inspiring. But you are the deputy head of presentation at TVC News. What would you say are, especially the roles that you're saddled with now? How do you go ahead with balancing that with work life?
All right. So the thing about broadcast journalism is that I usually tell people that you need to first answer the question of passion and interest, right? You have to be sure, because there are a lot of things to do these days. Why bother yourself with something you're not really interested in, right? And one thing I found that is that most of the people who are really successful on the job, they are in love with it. It's like being in a relationship with a guy. They say in their pursuit to make time count, you lose the count of time, right? So it has to be something that you love doing. So it doesn't look like, why am I staying so long at work? On the job, there's no 9 to 5. You wake up thinking of the story, you wake up thinking of the angle, you wake up sourcing the guest, you're thinking what's the perfect way to ask this question, and then you're thinking, how do I cast the headline? Or when I'm posting on social media, what is going to align with the SEO optimization for the platform that I intend to use? And then even at home, you are breathing the work, you are checking what story just broke, what is the background to the story, right? So you're watching news, you are literally breathing and living it. So it has to be something that you're passionate about, right? It's not a 9 to 5 job, so to speak. I don't go to work in the mornings anyways. I don't get to work until by 3 or 4 p.m. every day. So it's a lifestyle. And then personally, I have found a way to, because my wife is a journalist as well, I found a way to live that life, bringing my family into it. So over the weekend, we were together at one hotel. I was working and holidaying at the same time. So I've learned how to, do the job and live my life both at the same time.
Oh, well, I am currently a digital journalist and a social media correspondent. I hope perhaps I might be able to, balance my life, because I know I can relate to the fact that it's really tough, being a journalist. So we are talking about, telling stories that matter. The question then is, what does this mean to you? What does telling stories that matter? What does it mean?
All right. So sorry, I didn't ask for your name. What's your name?
My name is Aramide Folarunshaw.
Aramide. Okay. So stories that matter pretty much resonates with your values as a person. And it's very tricky because most of the journalists work with different platforms, right? And then most of the times you would have spent decades on the job before you enter editorial roles where you can determine what stories make the news or what conversation uh, is to be hard on a show or whatever it is. There are times you come up with story ideas and then your editor doesn't count it as, newsworthy, so to speak. So it why you're on the job. Because most times you'll find out that you have to make do with what you have to tell a story, right? And because you're not just a journalist who reads the news, who looks prim and proper for newscasting or for a particular show, it's a lifestyle. So let me give you an example. I once lived in a neighborhood where there was a crematorium. At crematoriums, what they do is that instead of burying corpses, they actually burn them, right? And in this particular place, there was this black smoke coming from the chimney. Now, this is literally you smoking, getting high on dead bodies because you touched every surface in your house, there's a black soot there, and that is not healthy, right? Now, it's not about that story now for me. It's not just about putting it on TV. It's not just about reporting the story. It's about telling the story in such a way that will cause a change to better the quality of life in the area where I'm living. So if I put at the editorial meeting, I'm saying, oh, something like this is happening, and it's not of interest to the channel that I was working with at the time, because think of it, every channel wants to be commercial. They want big stories. If they say someone died, they ask you how many people died. If you say two, they say that's not a headline story. Maybe 200, yeah, that will make the news. Now you have to find a way to tell your own story. So you identify what agencies are involved, right? Capture a video that can tell the story, use other platforms, right? It went so viral that one major digital platform picked it and quoted me to have said that the crematorium was on fire. But that wasn't what I said, right? But the good thing is that it got the attention of government agencies, even on my own personal platforms. And from then till now, that hasn't happened again. So but it really matters what matters to you as an individual. What are your values? Why are you on the job? You must always find a niche on the job that tallies with what you are passionate about. So if you're someone who's passionate about young girls, right? Or someone who's passionate about persons with disability, or someone who's passionate about international relations, you must always identify what your passion is. And by the time you start telling stories from a place of passion, it's going to catch fire. It's going to be, the chemistry is going to be there. You're not trying hard to do what is not you, right? And then even in a seemingly unrelated conversation, you can strike a chord, ask the right questions, and that way you are closer to making better impact than just following the tide.
Which what you just explained right now, sort of reminds me of what happened at work yesterday. I shared a story across our social media platforms. Ideally, so a truck had crushed a woman to death in Abule Egba yesterday. One person, I didn't think it would get that much attention, but I think it was the way the story was written, the way it was shared. There was, a whole lot of, then the conversation went to, oh, the roads, these trucks, why are they on the road by daytime, this and that, yada, yada, yada. So I can understand when you talk about telling the story in such a way that it will cause a positive change, your values, why you are on the job, they are very much important. And you also talked about, telling story from a place of passion. Now let's move on. In today's media landscape, what exactly would you say makes a story powerful enough to drive social change? And for the ladies in the media, for young girls in the media, journalists, how do they identify such stories that are not just trending, right? But they are transformational?
So think of two things. Think of human angle and being unbiased. Because usually when we talk about gender issues, right? Um, there's a way you can be there's a way a lady can tell a gender biased story from a biased point of view, just because you are a woman, right? So once you take bias from a story, it resonates better. And a good example would be what happened with this female senator recently at the 10th National Assembly, uh,
Natasha.
Natasha. Now, if you follow that story very closely, you'll find out that many journalists jumped on it out of sentiment, right? And it's a perfect talking, it is a perfect example on how do we really, as journalists, make positive impact. Recently, something was trending online about, I didn't quite follow the story. Sorry, I'm on move. I'm on the move, so bear with me. I didn't quite follow the story, but it's about someone claiming that somebody had raped her, and then eventually came out to say it didn't happen, right? So you need to settle while human angle is going to give you the eyeball, because everybody is in. For instance, take for instance the snake bite story. It got so viral because there's a human face to it. It got so viral that the next week or the next morning, senators were talking about it, right? And saying, how do we equip our hospitals better to be able to respond to incidents like this? But it's very important that when you are telling a story, you detach yourself from it. While it's important that you are passionate and you are interested, but you have to be unbiased. The moment people can sense bias, because what bias does is that bias makes you just jump into it without asking logical questions. Logical questions like whether she's a woman or a man, is it according to the rule book of the Senate to speak from a place that is not assigned to you? As much as you are thinking, oh, women folk, rights for women, they should not shut down person. If you are not telling that story from a rounded point of view, you have lost integrity as a storyteller, because you are just blindly being passionate, right? So you must be able to tell your story from all of the angles. Sometimes it would mean that you are showing the weaknesses in what has happened, weaknesses in the system, and then identifying the problems and the solutions. So if you are able to be unbiased and you can tell your story from a uh, human angle, you are going to get the kind of attention that you need. An example would be the recent tax laws, right? An example would be the recent tax law. Everybody's talking about the tax laws. Everybody is trying to do explainers. Everybody's trying to everybody's trying to make the public understand what the law is about. But nobody is telling the story from a taxpayer point of view, right? So, for instance, now, if I start a story by showing you my salary in December last year and what my salary is in January 2026, I have humanized the story to say that government this new law, you actually will pay less in tax, right? And then this is what I have seen in my pay. And then I now go to now ask, for instance, a small business owner to identify the multiplicity of taxes they used to pay last year. and what it means for them now when they said all of these taxes have been unified. You need to put a face to the story, right? And then you need to tell the story from all of the different angles possible. If you're able to marry these two, your chances of making impact, are really higher. But it's important that you are able to detach your personal preference, right? It's like someone's telling, how do you know a professional sport anchor? It's like someone who is an Arsenal fan who is now telling a story of how Arsenal was beaten, but you can see the bias written all over it. Do you get what I'm saying? So when you're able to detach yourself from those sentiments and then you put a face to it, you explore all of the different angles. I think a few other things will now matter. Maybe you're using the right platforms or you're treating the story right. But that for me are, are at the core of how a story can resonate with today's public.
Okay, well, I'm not an Arsenal fan, and I hope you're not. Or are you an Arsenal fan?
Not really, but I just wish that they win the league this time.
I think so far, anyways, but perhaps I might be rooting for Man City. But Arsenal has done a great job.
Yeah,
Well,
there's something about being underdog. Everyone loves that kind of a story of an underdog coming up to win, especially when they have made attempts in previous seasons. I think they came second last year. So it will be a very romantic story to have them come tops this time.
I don't want to hurt Arsenal fans that might be in the just so there are conversations around your audience should be at the center of whatever story that you're telling. And sometimes I have faced backlash because I cover, business, finance, economy, the capital markets, the financial markets, and trying to explain some government policies and all to people. They tend to are supporting this person or you are this. They sort of sometimes the people want you to go against the government. How do you do that? Because you want to tell stories that matter, but it has to be ethically done. It has to be. How do you balance that when you know that you're going to face backlash?
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest challenges that we are faced with right now. And you can tell that everyone loves to be on the side of the people, right? Because it gives you more eyeball, echoing what the people are saying. But when they say vox pop literally means the voice of the people is the voice of God. That's not completely true. Sometimes everyone can be saying the wrong thing, right? And that's why ethics has to be at the center of our job. Because I consider it sheer arrogance if you take an absolute position on a story. It gives you off as a closed mind, not acknowledging that there are different angles that you may not even know about or that you are not an expert over, right? So, but it depends on the kind of story you're telling. If you're just telling a story that has made the headlines, what you're trying to do is to guide the conversation to help the public understand it better. So in this case, you are not the expert, right? You are just finding how can I explore all the relevant angles there are to a story. So they said the 2023 election was rigged, right? You can come on air and say, that's not true. Tinubu lost in Lagos and in Kaduna and in other places. How can you say that that election was rigged? Now, if you say that as a journalist, you have already taken a position. And it's a very dangerous position to take because you are not speaking based on fact, right? The better way to treat that story would be to say, this is what has happened. This is what the court is saying. Now, what are other relevant stakeholders are saying? You just give room for all of these different voices to better understand the issue. That is what many people do. But to go deeper is investigative journalism, right? Where you now go deeper to find out the facts. Was there a glitch with the IREV? Was somebody really trying to break into the system? Do you understand what really happened? Not many journalists do that because I understand it is time consuming, it is expensive. Not many newsroom really have an investigative journalism desk. And if that is not our reality where we are currently, we must be humble enough to acknowledge it. That you really may not know the entirety of what happened during the NSAS. So when you are treating that story, please talk to somebody who supports it and also talk to somebody who doesn't support it. Now, that helps you to keep the ethics in the right place. I moderated a town square recently, and on the panel was the NDLEA chair, right? There was a consultant psychiatrist, there was a music producer and artist, and then one other person, okay, like a club owner who used to be a member of the House of Representatives. And we're talking about drug abuse. But I know on the inside of me that all of these guys are just going to be talking about why drugs are bad, why you should not smoke cannabis. But that's not the reality on the ground. Do you know that according to NDLA Act of 2004, by smoking cannabis, you can be jailed for almost 15 to 25 years? But most people smoke it on the street and nothing happens, right? So I told my producers, I said, get me an advocate of cannabis. Get me somebody who believes there's nothing wrong in smoking cannabis, right? After all, we see them smoke it on music video and nobody's arrested, right? So you need to complete the story. That's the point I'm trying to make. Don't be so blinded by emotions. Many of our colleagues do that a lot. And I think it's just sheer arrogance. Arrogance to speak like an authority. One of the things you learn first as a journalist is to learn everything about something. You learn something about everything and everything about something. As a journalist, you are supposed to know something about every area, about law, about economics, about international relations. Do you understand? And then you're supposed to know everything about your own job. But you must be humble enough to acknowledge that you are not an expert on everything. Yes. So even though you feel that this person really killed this person, but the law has not, a court of a competent jurisdiction has not pronounced that person guilty. Your ethics must kick in to say this is at best an allegation. Do you understand? Until it is pronounced by a court of. So those are the things that will guide you. Even though there is, and you must differentiate between citizen journalism and professional journalism. You are not somebody just tweeting on X. You're supposed to sound informed. So by the time you do this, you may not be as popular though, but controversy is not really the heart of the job, it's accuracy. So that's how I will answer that.
Controversy. In fact, I was trying to jot that. Perhaps I'll catch it. It's not the heart of the job. If I have to, draw a question on that, there is a part of your profile that struck my attention, and I am very much interested in asking a question. Yes, the second paragraph says that lead anchor at TVC, he delivers the station's flagship bulletins and anchor beyond the headlines, a daily program recognized as a national reference point for probing. Yet, so there is a word probing, and then there is the word respectful conversations. Because in this day and time, we see that people are more interested in adversarial journalism. Talk to the policymakers, talk to the leaders, grill them, ask them questions. But I've seen that there have been comparisons in recent times. Oh, there's this big presenter of politics in this TV station. He will rather do this. Oh, but this other person, he will give it to them. He will insult them. He will do this, he will do that. How do we strike a balance? Because I'm very much, when I saw this particular part of your profile that says that you anchor a daily program that is basically about probing yet respectful conversations.
That's so right. So this is a very interesting question, and it comes up even at platforms where we're not supposed to be discussing this, but it just comes up because journalism is evolving, and we must acknowledge that it is. Like some 15 years ago, there are certain things a journalist couldn't do. you couldn't opinionate on air. In fact, it was against the NBC rule, because the way we were brought up as journalists, your opinion is not supposed to show. Nobody's supposed to know which candidate you want to support or why you're going to support that candidate. And some of us still stick to that rule. But the reality is that it is evolving. I had a conversation recently with my CEO, and we're talking about, and many people have this conversation a lot about, I think in this case, many people talk about Seun Okinbaloye and then also reference our guy at Arise TV, Rufai Oseni. Fantastic guys, right? But this time we're talking about Seun's approach in contrast to some guy in the UK called Nick Ferrari, right? So in Seun's case, it is measured, it is conversational, it is guided. In Nick Ferrari's case, it is aggressive, it is confrontational, and it is accountability driven, right? Now, personally, I am a more measured guy. I probably would not even want to sustain an argument with you. And this has nothing to do with whether we're in front of camera or not, right? Like, I like to think of myself as a peaceful person. If you are arguing and what you're saying doesn't make sense, I'll probably just keep quiet. I had a conversation with the former secretary to the government of the Federation, and we're talking about the 2023 election, and he said that it was rigged. I mean, that the system was, and I said, but sir, it was the same electoral process under Buhari, who was your boss, that conducted the 2023. And he got angry, said, shut up, give me a break, shut up, shut up. And at the background, my producers were saying, how can he say shut up? You have to give it back to him. But at that moment, I felt like this man that is talking is older than my dad, right? It's okay if anybody says shut up. I have a lot of questions to ask him, and we have about just 12 more minutes to go. That question as a journalist is more important to me than my personal ego. So I said, my intention is not to rile you up. Let's take a short break and then we'll return. And we came back and finished all the questions. I wanted to find out what he felt about Buhari sacking him, the grass cutting issue. There were other relevant issues. So it wasn't really about me. And that's my training. That I'm not a superstar on air. I'm just doing my job. My job is to get answers to questions, right? Now, it doesn't mean that if he says shut up to somebody and the other person says, take that back, you cannot say that on national TV. So, and then it turns into a ruffle fight. That's also another brand of journalism, because it will trend that both of them fought on TV. It will make for good social media gist.
Exactly.
And the reality is that for some people, that is what they want. So let them have it, but that's not what I want. Do you get it? So it's important that we are able, but the point I want to make is that there are good elements in both divides that we can use. Okay? My own thinking is that it is natural to fight somebody.
All right.
It takes being wise to be able to be diplomatic and get somebody to answer the tough questions. So it's your decision now to be able to identify what are the relevant elements in both divides and make good use of it on whatever platform you use. You get it?
All right. I think we're drawing closer to the end of the conversation. I would take about one or two questions from people in the audience. I have a question here before I now, ask my own final question.
All right.
This question is from he or she is asking, we're in a fast-paced digital media space where speed often matters than depth. How can media girls trying to get it right balance the breaking news quickly with taking the time to find and tell the human story behind it?
All right. So please don't quote me on this, because we have this intellectual conversation at work. And I have told my workplace that we can't be first with breaking news. We have to change it. I don't think we're in the business of breaking the news because there's no way you can outbreak social media. Do you understand what I'm saying? But what you will find out is that many people delete what they have broken. So what will stand you out is not going to be speed. What is going to stand you out will be treatment of the story. Well, some people are even breaking stories that they don't understand. Traditionally, you don't break a story that you cannot confirm. So it doesn't matter if Channels has broken it, Arise has broken it. I need to confirm it before I break it. Now, you might consider me not fast, but it matters the way I will now treat the story. So the story is that Nasir El-Rufai has been arrested. Do you understand? And everybody's breaking it. Everybody's breaking it. But I could not break it because I have not confirmed it. My reporter covering that beat has not confirmed. But by the time I'm breaking it, I will now break it with a better treatment as to perhaps why he was arrested. Do you get it? When he was arrested, for what reason he was arrested, and what are the potential attributes or outcomes of this arrest. So I don't think that speed is no longer, I don't think speed is as relevant as accuracy and treatment. Everybody wants to break the news, and I understand it. But if you subscribe to that urgency, you are going to make mistakes. And the moment you start making mistakes, you'll notice that you are no longer credible. The fact that somebody has 100,000 followers on Twitter doesn't mean that these followers don't know that he says rubbish at times. That's why they will still come to my page to confirm whether that story is true or not. Do you understand? So you are going to decide what you're subscribing for. Are you subscribing for speed or you're subscribing for credibility? And on this job, credibility is king. If you take a if you go and in a haste break a true, it will come back at you in the future. So take your time, always confirm your story before you break it. But what will stand you out is not really breaking. Okay, let's say everybody has speed. What's going to stand you out is the treatment. How do you intend to treat the story? I would treat the story by giving you facts and figures, by giving you historical background. Do you understand? For instance, now, as a journalist, there are newspapers that I read. Because some newspapers, they're just telling you the news. Some people, well, after they have broken the news, they will now take you back to 15 years ago. What happened? Context. That's what I'm looking for. Because that embellishes and that enriches my knowledge of the story. So you need to find out a unique way to treat your story and don't subscribe to the neck-breaking speed. You won't be able to survive it.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. I understand that we are pressed for time at this moment. But my final question for you, if you can answer very quickly in about 1 minute, if you were to give, one final charge, your final words to media girls who want to shape the future through storytelling, of course, telling stories that matter, what would it be?
I want to tell media girls that ladies are taking over. My CEO is a lady. My director of news until recently is a woman. My head of department is a lady. I mean, ladies are really taking over the media space. And it's important that you are not, what's the word I'm looking for? Don't subscribe to the narrative that is a man's world. You wake up, smell the coffee. In another 10 or 15 years now, in fact, I am worried about the people called boy children, the boy child of this age. Women are taking over. So nothing should hold you back. But it's also important that you early enough make sure that this is what you're interested in and get the work ethics for it. The challenge with many ladies in the media space is that they are not able to compete in investing the accurate number of time it takes to become an all-round journalist, right? So you find a space where you hire a lady today, she goes on 6 months maternity leave, and then the other 6 months. In fact, I know someone who after 6 months, she asks for more 6 months. So ladies now have to adapt. What can I do when I'm nursing my baby and still be relevant in the newsroom? I don't have to be there to tell my story. I can even choose my life, my experience as a new mom, as a story that I'm telling. I can choose my platform for it. Do you understand? So that you're not limited by stuff like that. But apart from that, if you put in the work, if you study hard, if you expose yourself to relevant platforms, and you put in the hours, oh, the sky is going to be the starting point. Someone said that if you do something consistently, if you do it, if you give it about 10,000 hours or something, that you would have become an authority in that field. I don't think it's a matter of whether you're a girl child or a boy child. I think it's a matter of what you are able to give, the commitment you are able to bring, on board. Because most times, the reason why more men get the spot is because they are more available. Do you understand? They are more available. And then on this job, I did not study mass comm in school. I studied Greek economics and extension. So when they abuse refined that he studied Greek, that's not the point. The point is that who can do the job? Do you understand what I'm saying? If you like, go and study mass comm and do. If you are lazy, if you are not in tune with the latest tools, if you don't understand your story, you're not going to be able to play. Do you understand? So I think that if you put in the work, you're going to shine. And I think I did more than 1 minute of that.
Yes, thank you so much for your and for your submission there. I particularly, like how you were able to balance it, considering that women or females have a natural role to play, beyond the newsroom, beyond work. But I like that you were able to balance it, that you can, even as a nursing mother, while you're on leave, your maternity leave, you can still look for something that keeps you relevant. So at this point, I want to say a very big thank you to you for joining the conversation today. It's been such an amazing time. We've learned quite a lot from you. I have like over 4 pages, of jottings that I have there. Thank you so much, Nifemi Oguntoye, broadcast journalist, corporate compare, and also sorry, 1 second. All right, you can keep it coming. Keep it coming. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you tonight. Thank you so much for those insights that you have shared. You're the Deputy Head of Presentation at TVC News. We really appreciate you for your time this evening.
Thank you so much, Aramide. I am grateful for this opportunity. I also want to say a big thank you to Oludolapo for inviting me. I try to share quite a number of nuggets based on my experience on my LinkedIn page. So if you follow me on Nifemi Oguntoye on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of reference to some of the interviews I've made and how we can help modern journalists. You can also follow me on X at Nifemi Oguntoye, where you see some of my works, and I'm sure that it will add a little to what you're doing. So it's a small world. We're going to meet. We're probably going to become colleagues at some point. Just mention Media Girl so that I can remember that we met online at a point in time. Thank you for having me, everyone.
Yes, it's a pleasure. It was really nice having you. Thank you so much once again. Okay, right now we've heard from Nifemi Oguntoye, learned quite a lot from everything that it takes, to tell a story that matters. It's basically, like I said earlier, it's about making impact, making a change. I like especially when he talked about, it's not just about being the first to break the news. You need to go beyond the news. And that's what Channels Television has basically, taught me. So I would like to bring on Madam Oludolapo to add 1 or 2 things to the conversation tonight.
You have to drag me into the mix, right?
This without you.
Well, it should run without me, I like to be in the background. But thank you very much for the honor. Thank you very much for a fantastic anchoring so far. And I want to say thank you to our guest tonight, Nifemi Oguntoye. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for stepping out of your busy schedule for us tonight. We really appreciate it, and we say thank you. We wish you a wonderful, wonderful week of productivity. And to the conversation that we're having tonight, telling stories that matter. I really like the fact that our guest dived deep into the topic. He said we shouldn't be emotionally too attached to a particular story, and we want to tilt it in our favor. It's so easy to be biased about a story because you feel this is the story that you want to tell. But when you look at a story objectively, you would realize that there is more to unpack from a story. We could be gender, champions, but at the same time, when a story is making the rounds, let's take a step back and analyze a story from different perspectives. I also like the fact that he talked about human angle stories. One of the things that guides me in selecting stories is when I say, where's the human face in the story? How will people, I liked when he talked about the taxpayer, how a taxpayer will see a visible change in the tax payment. If you tell that kind of story, it's a story that matters to the people. There was a day I was telling someone here, I think maybe she's even on the call, we were talking about the story of jam, parents paying something about jam. And I said we should tell that story from the parents' angle, not just the angle of the government. When people see themselves in a story, it resonates more with them. So I'll leave it at that. And I will say, media girls, let's continue to tell the stories that matter. They help us to be better journalists, to be better broadcasters, and they also help us to serve our audience better. I wish you all the best. Let's go back to watch this conversation and learn more from it. So well done, Aramide. Well done, everyone that has worked behind the scenes to make this edition a possibility. Let's make it a date in March. And March is International Women's Month. We might have 2 webinars, one strictly for everything that has to do with women in media and our regular one. Or we might just have the regular one and it will be geared towards women in media. So let's keep it locked for our guest in March. I wish you all the best. Have a great night rest.
Right. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. It's good night from here.